Have you ever had that specific nightmare where you're running, you are giving it absolutely everything you have,
Oh, yeah?
lungs burning, legs pumping, heart just hammering against your ribs, but the hallway just keeps stretching out, you're not actually
You're
moving?
just stuck. High effort, zero displacement. It's the classic anxiety dream.
It is, but the problem is for so many people that isn't a dream, that's just Tuesday.
Right.
It's that feeling of being on a hamster wheel that is spinning just a little bit faster than you can actually run. And, when you tell someone you feel like this, what do they always say?
Oh, they tell you to buy a planner.
Yes.
Or, wake up at 4 a.m.
Right. Hustle harder, optimize your workflow. You have the same 24 hours as Beyonce.
Yeah.
But today we're doing a deep dive into a set of writings that basically takes all that advice, just crumples it up and throws it straight in the trash.
Which is, I have to say, pretty refreshing.
It is. We're looking at excerpts from a text called Beyond Survival, Reclaiming Power Through Strategic Alignment. And I really want to set the stage here because this is not your standard 5 tips to organize your desk kind of content.
No, absolutely not. If we're going to categorize this, I wouldn't even call it self-help. I'd probably call it a systemic critique.
A critique. Okay.
Yeah, the central argument is that burnout isn't usually a failure of discipline on your part. It's it's a structural inevitability for certain groups of people, for people living in systems that were never really built for them to succeed in the first place.
That's a heavy opener, structural inevitability. So, okay, the mission for this deep dive is to unpack that. We need to figure out why that traditional hustle advice fails so many of us and explore this alternative strategy the source calls alignment.
Right.
But I guess before we get into the solution, we have to really understand the problem. The source starts with this very specific kind of chilling declaration.
It does. It says, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, there are a lot of systems in this world that were never designed for people like us to win.
Okay, let's stop there. People like us. That can feel a little vague. Who is the us in this scenario? Because usually the narrative is that if you fail, you just weren't smart enough or you didn't work hard enough.
And the text just explicitly rejects that. It says, not because we aren't capable, not because we aren't smart, but because we're busy surviving.
Surviving?
Yeah, so the us here refers to anyone who is carrying this heavy, non-negotiable load outside of their career. The text lists things like, raising children, rebuilding a life after some kind of crisis, managing chronic health issues, or handling really complex financial burdens.
So you're talking about people who just don't have a blank check for their time.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where the analysis gets really interesting economically.
Mm-hmm.
The source argues that for this group, let's say a single parent or someone caring for an aging relative, their most valuable resource isn't money.
It's time.
It's time.
Time is your most valuable currency. We've all heard that before. It sounds like a bit of a cliche, doesn't it?
It is a cliche if you just stop there.
Mm-hmm.
But the source takes it a step further. It argues that there's a fundamental clash between your currency, which is time, and what the opportunity market demands.
The opportunity market. You mean jobs, promotions, side hustles, that kind of thing.
Right. And the source says that most of these modern opportunities, they demand 3 specific things as an entry fee: hustle, constant presence, and exhaustion.
Okay, let's drill down on constant presence.
Yeah.
Because in a post-Zoom world, it hits hard. What does the text mean by that?
Think about the implicit expectation of the modern workplace, the Slack notification that comes in at 7:30 p.m.
The email at 6:00 a.m.
The email at 6:00 a.m. The idea that if an urgent meeting just pops up, you can be there, no questions asked. To offer that constant presence, you need to have basically zero friction in the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You need to be someone who doesn't have to pick up a sick kid from school. You need to be someone who doesn't have a dialysis appointment.
I see. So if you do have those things, you aren't just busy, you're structurally incompatible with the demand.
Exactly. And that leads to the third demand: exhaustion. The text argues the system is designed to extract maximum energy. So if you're already using, say, 80% of your energy just to maintain your baseline.
Just to keep the kids fed and the house standing.
Yeah, exactly. And the job is demanding 100% of your energy.
Yeah.
Well, you can do the math.
You're in the red every single day.
You're in a deficit.
Yeah.
And that is the trap. The text says that if you accept these terms, if you agree to pay the exhaustion tax, you just get stuck in survival mode. You're constantly recovering for the effort of today, which means you have zero capacity to build for tomorrow.
And that's the hamster wheel.
That is the hamster wheel.
So the narrator of our source material, they reach a breaking point. They look at this deal, trading their health, their sanity for a paycheck, and decide that wasn't acceptable anymore. And this is where the pivot happens. They change the question they're asking.
This is such a crucial shift. Most of us, when we feel like we're drowning, we ask the hamster wheel question.
Which is,
How do I run faster? Or how do I fit more into this one day? We assume the only variable we can change is our own effort.
right, if I just wake up an hour earlier, maybe I can catch up.
But the source rejects that. It suggests a new question, which is, how do I work smarter without losing my values?
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here because work smarter is probably the oldest productivity slogan in the book. It's on every inspirational poster in every break room in America. How is this any different?
You have to look at the second half of that sentence.
Without losing my values.
Without losing my values. Usually, when the business world talks about working smarter, it's a euphemism for cutting corners. It implies, treating people like numbers or ignoring your health or outsourcing your parenting so you can close a deal. It's efficiency at the cost of your humanity.
So efficiency just means becoming a robot.
Pretty much. But the source is asking, how do I navigate this really rigorous system efficiently while staying a human being? How do I succeed without becoming an absentee parent or just burning out my adrenals? It's not just about output, it's about integrity.
And this brings us to, I think, the core mechanic of this whole deep dive. The source makes a distinction that is going to, I think, frustrate some people, but really liberate others. It distinguishes between effort and structure.
This was the aha moment for me. The text says, systems don't care about effort, they care about structure.
Systems don't care about effort. That sounds so harsh. I mean, we're raised on the American dream, right? The idea that if you just sweat enough, you'll get there. Is this text saying that's just a lie?
I think it's physics. Let's use an analogy because the text is a little abstract here. Imagine you're in a rowboat. You're strong. You're motivated. You are rowing with like Olympic level intensity. But you're rowing upstream against a violent current.
Okay. I'm sweating. I'm trying my best.
You are giving 100% effort, but the structure of the river, the current, it's moving against you at, say, 10 miles an hour. If you're rowing at 9 miles an hour, you're still moving backward.
Right.
Now, imagine someone else. They're in a sailboat. They just catch the wind. They're barely moving a muscle, but they are flying right past you.
Because they have a better structure.
Exactly. The wind is a system. The current is a system. The person in the sailboat isn't a better worker than you. They're not hustling harder. They're aligned with the structure of the wind. You are fighting the structure of the water.
That is so frustrating.
It's incredibly frustrating.
Because if I'm the guy in the rowboat, I'm looking at the sailboat person thinking, I am working twice as hard as him. Why am I losing?
And that is exactly why this insight is so important. The source is understanding this stops you from blaming yourself for struggling inside a broken design.
Ah.
If you don't understand structure, you internalize the failure. You think, I must be weak, or I must be lazy.
But in reality, you just brought a rowboat to a sailing race.
Correct. You're trying to solve a structural problem with an effort solution, and it just never works.
Okay, but I can hear the skeptics listening right now. They're thinking, fine, the system is rigged, the river is flowing against me, so what? Do I just give up? Is this just a fancy way of making excuses?
And that's the danger of this line of thinking, right? It can lead to nihilism. But the source isn't saying give up. It's saying change tools. It's suggesting a strategy called alignment.
Alignment, okay. Define that for us, because it sounds a little bit buzzwordy.
It can. The text is very careful to define what it is not first. It says this isn't about shortcuts. We aren't talking about cheating the system.
So we're not stealing the sailboat.
We're not stealing the sailboat, no. It defines alignment as using the tools that already exist to reclaim time, energy, and dignity.
I want to pause on that word, dignity. The text groups it with time and energy. We usually talk about ROI, return on investment, time and money. Why is dignity in that mix?
I think that's the most profound part of this whole text. Think about that constant presence demand we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Think about the parent who has to pretend they don't have kids during a Zoom call because they're afraid of looking unprofessional. Or the employee who has to practically beg for time off to go take care of a sick parent.
Yeah. There's a shame that gets attached to it, like you're apologizing for having a life outside of work.
That's the indignity. The system makes you feel small for having human needs.
Mhm.
So reclaiming dignity means building a life where you don't have to apologize for who you are or what your responsibilities are.
Mm.
It means structuring your work so that your survival isn't some dirty secret.
And the source specifically flags who needs this the most. It says, especially for mothers, caregivers, and families who are constantly asked to do more with less.
Which is the group that gets gaslit the most. Because if you tell a working mother to just hustle harder, you are asking for blood. She doesn't have any more hustle to give. She is tapped out. For her, alignment isn't a productivity hack. It's a survival strategy.
So let's get practical then. We know the system is the current. We know rowing harder doesn't work. How do we build the sail? The source talks about the role of knowledge in all this.
It does. It makes this great distinction between information and power.
Right. It says, when knowledge is explained simply, clearly, and honestly, it becomes power.
And we live in an age of just information overload. If you Google how to be productive, you will get 10 million hits.
And 9 million of them are from people trying to sell you a course.
Exactly. That's what the source calls noise and hype. The text explicitly says we need to move away from all that hype and start building pathways.
What's the difference between hype and a pathway?
Well, hype tells you that you can do it. It pumps you up. It yells at you to run faster.
Right.
A pathway shows you how the system works. It's a map.
So hype is a motivational speaker yelling at me while I'm in the rowboat. A pathway is the map that shows me where the wind currents are.
Yes, exactly. Knowledge becomes power when it reveres the hidden mechanics of the system. If you know how the corporate ladder is actually climbed, not the official HR version, but the real structural version, you can align yourself with it. If you know how to automate your finances or leverage technology to duplicate your time, you are building a sail.
It's all about leverage.
It's all about leverage. It's about finding the buttons that, when you push them, do the work for you so you don't have to use your own muscle for everything.
I really love that visual. Stop being the engine, start being the architect.
That's it. That is the shift from effort to structure.
So let's bring this all together. We started this deep dive with that suffocating feeling of the hamster wheel, the realization that for caregivers, for people in survival mode, the hustle it's a rigged game.
Because the cost of entry, that constant presence and exhaustion, is just too high.
We recognize that time is our real currency and the market exchange rate is just terrible.
So we stop asking, how do I work harder?
Mm-hmm.
And we start asking, how do I align with structure?
We talked about the rowboat versus the sailboat, effort versus structure, and the importance of reclaiming not just time and energy, but dignity.
Stopping the apology tour for being a human being.
And finally, using clear, honest knowledge to build pathways, instead of just getting lost in all the noise.
It's a complete reframing of what it even means to succeed.
You know, despite how heavy the diagnosis is, this idea that systems are rigged, the source ends on a surprisingly hopeful note. It addresses you, the listener, directly. It says, if you've ever felt like you were capable of more, but trapped inside systems that didn't account for your reality, you're not alone.
And that validation is the first step.
Mm.
You have to stop thinking you're the one who's crazy.
But then it leaves us with this final, slightly cryptic thought. I want to get your take on this. It says, you're early, and we're just getting started.
You're early. I love that line.
What do you think that means? Being early to what?
I think it means we are at a cultural tipping point.
Yeah.
For the last, 20 or 30 years, the hustle culture narrative has been completely dominant. If you were tired, you were weak. If you were struggling, you just needed to lean in harder.
Right.
But that narrative is cracking.
We're seeing the edges start to fray.
Exactly. People are realizing that the promise, just work hard and you'll be safe, it isn't holding up anymore. So if you're listening to this and you're realizing, wait, I need to focus on structure, not just effort, you're actually ahead of the curve. You're early to the realization that the old way of working is dying.
That reframes the struggle completely.
Yeah.
You aren't falling behind the pack. You're the first one to realize the race is going in the wrong direction.
You're the first one to stop rowing and start looking for a sail.
So that is your mission for this week. Look at your own life. Look at where you are pouring in these massive amounts of sweat and tears of seeing zero results. And be honest with yourself. Ask the question, is this an effort problem? Or am I fighting a structural current that I can't possibly beat with muscle alone?
And remember, you have the right to reclaim your time. You have the right to your dignity. The system won't give it to you. You have to design a structure that lets you take it back.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.